Spatchcock Nation is in the house. Unfiltered, uncensored, and unapologetically for the people. Turn it up. Live, one night only, Spatchcock Funk. Welcome to Spatchcock Nation, y'all. A dope podcast, rolls our cooking show, and today we're talking about rock stars with a rock star. I'm also joined by my partner in crime, a video rock star, a creative rock star, a party rock star, my man, Alexander DeRosa. What is
I
up?
love the video rock star title. That's the first time I've been called that.
Well, you're a super talented videographer, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you.
Awesome.
So I'm excited to talk to our guest, but also to talk about you because one of my favorite things to do in the world, easily in my top 5 things to do, is to go to concerts with the right people. And you are one of my favorite people to go to concerts with. Every time we've been to a killer show, dude, somehow you find a way to get us into the pit or the VIP. I don't even know how that happens, but I can't think of a time where we didn't have a blast, man. Like seeing Blink 182 was dope. Just awesome shit.
Yeah, man. It's funny because when I go to concerts in other cities where I can't have that access, it's just not the same. I feel like I'm like a celebrity that's getting denied access somewhere. So at Blink 182, I feel like I did eventually just enjoy the concert, but for the first band, you guys were like, "This band rocks," and I'm like, "Cool," and I'm just staring at the security guard like, "Red wristband, white wristband," like I'm like telling like, "How can I get down to that pit?"
Yeah.
So it's a blessing that I get to do it here, but then also a curse everywhere else I go. But we were at Foo Fighters.
Behave like us peasants, dude. I guess that's your curse.
At Foo Fighters Fenway Park, where all of this started, as far as access goes, with our buddy Bush and me and him. He's really good at this too. We were on the field at Fenway Park, and we were at second base. Like we weren't like way up at the top of this arena. We're at second base. We could have probably just enjoyed the show from there, but the stage was out in center field. And I felt like I was like 10 miles away. I'm like, I need to get closer. So we found a way that the tickets were vertical versus horizontal. And we came up with a security guard as the music started with 2 beers in her hand. And we're like, oh my God, we can't possibly find our ticket. And she's like, oh, I know you guys, you're good. And we just walked through. And then we just kind of squeezed in with these guys. And I was in the aisle the whole time. And once the concert started, no one cared. But like, pretty sure that they knew and they weren't thrilled, the people we were sitting with. So I might have got roofied that night, even though I blame it on Mike, but pretty sure.
I've heard legends of this trip that you roofied yourself, man. That's pretty much how I heard it.
I don't know. Like I blame it on Mike, but I'm pretty sure these guys might have done it.
Yeah. If I'm sitting there at a concert and someone budges into my seats, instead of telling the usher to kick these jerks out of here to punch the guy and enjoy the show, I'm going to roofie him and deal with that later. That's probably how I would handle that.
Yeah, like there's no incentive. There was no incentive for them to roofie me, but like, I don't know. I have a good tolerance of like, I drink beer, I'll go. I was, unless I'm with you where I have to go beer for beer and it doesn't work out well, but I learned how to do that. But here I felt like I was in good shape. And then once the Foo Fighters started, it was just
that story does surprise me about you because I've been to a lot of shows and partied a lot with you. I mean, literally, we have a show about partying, so we've done it a lot together, and it's awesome.
Is that what this show's about?
I mean, that's what it was about for me. Probably some of the viewers like, oh shit, I thought this was like about like.
I thought this was like Sunday dinner, how to throw a banging Sunday dinner.
We could do that too.
Good episode idea.
But every time I party with you, you always handle everything well. And like, I mean, the Zach Brown concert this past summer was pretty intense. But like when we went to Foo Fighters in our hometown, when they were like late, right? We were drinking beers forever. And that show was one of the best shows I've ever seen. But if there's any opportunity to be overserved, that was probably the night. And you were awesome.
Right. That was my point. Is that night we sat for four plus hours without any music playing. And drinking because we're like, oh, Foo Fighters are coming on. And I was fine.
Yeah, dude. It was crazy. So I can't wait to get Joe on here and hear some of his stories because our take on this is we've been backstage at stuff like and we did some, which we'll talk about later, Shania Twain catering and stuff like that. But in the grand scheme of things, though, our experience is rocking in the crowd, hammering beers, like doing all those type of things. This dude's experience is being on the stage, man, and working with rock stars, being a rock star.
Idiots like us Like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah,
my God, in like dealing with the signs that you like to bring to the concert that says like, I love you. I love
dude.
you, Joe.
Yeah, and he's got some fans too. That I'm going to tell him a story about when I got a haircut once. This girl was like, "Oh my God, you know Just Joe," and but how it got set up was unreal. So it's a pretty crazy thing.
Well, I will say though, as much as depends on the band, Foo Fighters is different. Couple, Blink-182, some of these bands, but most of the time, it's the tailgate that is a far superior and more fun than the concert. Like the country concerts. I have fun at the country concerts just because it's everyone's in a good mood. But like the tailgate at those concerts, I'd rather it last for another 5 hours and
I'd
not
rather
go in the show.
they should just open parking lots for tailgates and just pump music through speakers. Because I agree
Seriously,
about
that's not a bad idea.
we got a new business plan. That and burrito slingers. I was thinking about like
Whoa.
but we should keep that quiet. So one of the things about that tailgate setup and country music, man, like trying to get into it because I want to be open-minded to everything. Whoever you love, I'm down with, whatever, everything, and creatively, obviously. So I respect these storytellers. But every country show is like, I lost my horse, I lost my dog, I lost my baby,
That's
So
like
I'm getting more into it. Like Zach
joke.
Brown was cool.
You can't use that joke anymore. That's the country concerts now are like pop shows. Like they're just like fun. Like they're not like old school. You're talking about like old school country.
Well, the ones that you've made me go to, like Florida Georgia Line was fun.
Yep.
And I don't remember one of their. Nelly wasn't there, so that was frustrating for me.
Yeah,
And
you were expecting. I think I sold you on going to that show with Nelly.
Yeah, I think you did. And I was like, oh shit, I love that song with Nelly. That's dope. And then we got there. I'm like, where's Nelly? You're like, oh no, he's not gonna be here.
But we got to see
We have seen Nelly together though. Nelly's pretty awesome.
No, I mean Florida Zach Brown Band is a great one. And then I went to Kenny Chesney, which I wasn't expecting to love, to be honest. I was like, I'll go, but we were like this close to him. And the experience was just, I mean, it was awesome. It was a good show. And there's songs by Kenny Chesney that I don't really like that I like loved in the moment that I'm like, I know this one. So,
dude, you know what? I mean, country, we can talk about country and hip hop and so forth. But right now, I think it's time to introduce a true to the world rock star. This is Just Joe. So here's my deal with my man, right? This dude has done it all in the rock and entertainment space. He's hosted a morning show on a killer alternative rock station here in Syracuse with our boy Josh Grosevent. He's one of the founding members of a national recording act, Brand New Sin. He makes a living crushing microphones. He's got a killer. Check him out on every social media platform, dude. He posted this incredibly beautiful version of the Soundgarden song "Fell on Black Days," and it like made me cry, dude. He is just incredible, dude. Or no, it's The Day I Tried to Live, I think, actually, but he'll be able to clear that up. He's been on tour, dude. He's taken to more great shows than probably anyone we know. He's part of the rock stars because he actually is a rock star. And now we're going to party with him. Like any big act, like a tailgate, dude, you got to warm the crowd up. So we got our boy Just Joe popping in. We're going to warm him up with a lightning round of some questions. Joe, what's up, baby?
What's up, man?
What's going on? I'm ready. I'm warm.
Looking good, dude, in a hot studio that's got some drinks in there, which is pretty dope.
Yeah,
so
lots of them.
I'm going to fire you up right now with this, right? What frontman or rock star growing up, coming up, do you identify with the most? Like who's your boy? Who's your person? You know what I mean?
It's always Ronnie Van Zant from Leonard Skinner. Always. It's my dream job. I still want to sing for Skinner someday.
Wow. You know what? I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting something different. I was expecting Hatfield. I was, Joe and Jett. I mean, but that's obviously
Ronnie Van Zant all the way.
You think there's they're going to be hiring? Are they hiring for that frontman position at some point?
Oh, but the crazy thing is that band is like there's no original members left, right? It's just it's a legacy band, but they are, which is a whole other conversation with itself. But at some point, that dude's going to retire, right? The little brother's going to retire.
Yeah.
I figure I'd throw my name in the hat.
I mean, you're in the game. You definitely could be considered for that job.
Yeah.
Have they done like with other bands? I know like Journey, there's a lot of bands that just kind of, there's not these original members anymore. Do they have auditions or is it just like people they know?
With Journey, they were looking for a singer and Neil Sean sat down on YouTube and just YouTubed the shit out of like every every Journey tribute act ever, trying to find a new singer for Journey, because they had a guy, but it wasn't working out, right?
Yeah.
And there was like a guy in between, the guy that replaced Steve Perry and then Arnell, and he just wasn't working out. So he went down the rabbit hole and found that dude in the Philippines. They found all these videos of Arnell singing in the Philippines. They're like, this can't be real. And that's how they found him. Is literally,
Wow.
That's how some do it. Some do it through the industry. And in this day and age, you just go on YouTube. You can probably find a guy that's better than the guy that you're trying to replace.
So I'm guessing you sing a lot of Leonard Skinner covers. I know you do. You release some awesome videos of you just playing. That's the way, right? Like just
I'm hoping that maybe one of them will stumble upon, and that'll be it. Who knows?
Maybe they'll watch this. Maybe they'll just watch this. That's all.
Maybe they'll watch this.
Yeah. Okay. So, if you're headlining Lollapalooza, dude, what outfit are you rocking? Because I've seen you like last time I saw you, last couple times I saw you, you were dressed radically different. I saw you like in a kind of a classier outfit, and then I saw you at Shifty's looking like you were ready to headbutt somebody. So Lollapalooza headlining, what are you wearing?
Probably like a nice like button-up shirt. Either Western style, like a plaid shirt, like Dixon flannel with the sleeves cut off, some nice jeans, and my Doc Martens, my brand new Doc Martens. Maybe a couple wrist accessories, but I mean, I'm accessorized with tattoos. I don't have the bandanas and all that other stuff need to go on. I'll just do that. Cut the sleeves off the shirt, put on my Doc Martens, and let's go.
Love it, dude. And I agree about the accessories as tattoos. Tattoos as accessories. I love it.
I got to imagine that it gets pretty hot on stage. So you're not like t-shirt underneath where you're like this thing's going in the crowd, like heavy flannel.
No, it would be. I found this clothing company right before the last Brand New Sin show called Rock and Roll Soul, and they make a lot of those button ups that are they're nice and they got cool designs, but you can either go like really radical and wild, or you can keep it real simple with this black one. And I found this nice black one that had like this kind of like inlay that you could only see like if the light was hitting it just right. It was black, but it was matte black. It was pretty cool. So it'd probably be something simple like that, Plus, I don't want to spend that much. I don't want to spend that much money on an outfit. I think I spent more money on the Doc Martens than I did on the rest of it.
They last forever, though, dude. Especially,
they do, and they're guaranteed forever. So if something happens, you just mail them. You got to mail them to England, but they'll fix them and send them back.
Yeah, dude, they're super sick. My wife has a pair of white ones that are super awesome, and she doesn't want to wear them a lot because they're white. And I'm like, dude, you can send them back. I mean, it's like $200 to send them back, probably.
You got to bring him to Ralphie Shoe Repair, discount shoe repair. He's our
for you. He's the man.
He's the man. He's awesome.
He's the man. He's been around forever, like forever. That dude will fix
one of my favorite people. Yep.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah.
Alex has been invited back. So for people that are listening, this dude Ralphie is an Italian immigrant and loves that fact. So which is an awesome fact. But he has this great accent. He's all over town. Everybody knows him. He has this little like cobbler shop in an expensive part of downtown Syracuse. You're like, how does this dude have rent by fixing your shoes for $1.50? And he has a secret room in the back, Joe, where like he brings the mayor and like celebrities back to have like cappuccinos. And Alex has been back there. I've never been back there.
Yeah, well, and really? He doesn't even charge for anything. Like I had my like softball mitt fixed. I've had he's like, no, your money's no good here, which is my favorite thing to hear. But yeah. It's a little cappuccino.
Then how's he making money in that building? Unless he's got rent control, because he's been there forever. But I mean, that building's changed hands. It's not expensive to even run an office space in that part of town.
Totally, dude. And he's got front real estate, like windows. Yeah, dude, he lives it, man.
There's a deal going on somewhere. He struck a deal a long time. Well, listen, he probably got his shop when Lee Alexander was the mayor of Syracuse. And we all know the stories of Lee Alexander. Maybe he struck a deal and that stuck for the rest of his life.
That dude, Lee Alexander, the mayor of Syracuse, and then I'll bring us back to the rock star life, but he at one point had like in the city hall of Syracuse, there's like a private residence at some point, because he was just like, I'm just going to post up here sometimes, which is kind of wild to think about. You know what I mean? It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So speaking of I've been dying to get this answer from you for a while. So what is one of or a couple of your favorite like go-to albums of all time? Like for me, like The Chronic or Appetite for Destruction. There's some albums that like I will never get tired of. So what are your go-to like
I'm gonna try to think of 5, and they really describe my musical taste. One is Kiss Destroyer. I'm a big Kiss fan. It was the first band I ever got into when I was a kid. That was the first album I ever owned. Started my journey. I'm like, what is this? Metallica, Master of Puppets.
Ooh,
Eagles, Hotel California. Counting Crows, August and Everything After, which I think is like the most perfect album ever made. And the 5th one is one that most people don't know about. They'll know who the artist is. His name's Zakk Wylde. He's a guitar player from Ozzy Osbourne.
I've seen him, dude.
Black Label Society. He
yeah.
put out a solo record. Like he left Ozzy, had a band called Pride and Glory, which was like a Southern rock thing. That fell apart. And in between Pride and Glory and Black Label Society, he put out a record called Book of Shadows. And it never went anywhere. It was kind of like he put it out there and it just didn't do anything. That record has probably meant more to me and got me through more rough parts of my life than anything. So that's the one album. So those are the 5 right off the top of my head.
I'm gonna check that out, because whenever you have this conversation with someone, you pick up some cool shit, and you made me think of something too. Actually, I was at a bar with my wife and some friends, and I think we were in like Hoboken, New Jersey, or like somewhere like that. And it was like a little chill bar, and like craft cocktails, and like an acoustic dude in the back playing the guitar. And I walked in, and he was playing like an acoustic cover of Britney Spears' "Toxic," and I noticed it. I'm like, that's cool. Cool song, cool version of it. And then I'm like talking, we're hanging out, and all of a sudden I hear like him change tempo a little bit, and he's like slowly, he's like, "Obey your man," and I'm like, is this dude playing Master of Puppets? And he played like 3 songs from the album, and there's like people all dressed up and dolled up. I was like, so every time I think of that album, instead of like, when you have a song, you mentioned getting through tough parts of your life, there's always different songs that I might hear, and it takes you back to something. So thanks for sharing the Book of Shadows, dude. That's dope.
No, it's a great record. I mean, obviously the other 4 that I named are pretty well-known records, but those records shaped me as a kid. And if there's one other one that I would add to it, and it's only because it has local ties, and it's really what got me into like the local music scene as a kid and made me realize that, hey man, there's bands coming out of this town. There was a band called the Masters of Reality back in the 80s and the early 90s, and they were legends in Syracuse. And their very first album, called The Blue Garden, was put out by Rick Rubin, and signed them to Def American or Def Jam or whatever it was at the time, produced the record, and they put it out. And they were just so far ahead of their time that no one got it. And like that record to this day is up there with all the other records that I named. And mainly because I was just such a kid. I was too young to go see them play at the Lost Horizon or all those places. But I bought that record, and I bought it on tape. And a month later, we had to go. My mom had to take me back to the mall to buy another one because I had wore the tape out. And then the singer of that band, the main guy of that band, Chris Goss, went on to create, like, there would be no Queens of the Stone Age without Chris Goss. Wow. Chris Goss was the producer. He started producing a band called Caius, and Caius ended up becoming Queens of the Stone Age when Caius fell apart. He was the producer of all what's called the Desert Sound, which Caius and Queens of the Stone Age and all that came out, that stoner rock feel. And Chris Goss went on to be a legendary guy in that genre. And any of the guys from Queens of the Stone Age will rave about Chris Goss. Wow. So that's the other album.
Okay. So that makes me think of something else that we want to ask you. And I don't know how I can verbalize how I view this in my head, but I think about like creatively from our standpoints, like cooking or like making videos and stuff like that. Where you're coming from is, I always think of you as someone, when I'm describing you, if I'm gonna go see you at a place, I'm like, yo, he's like he's genre fluent, like, and genre fluid. So you can play like something like I've heard you play like Prince and then go into like, Soundgarden or somebody else. So, which is an incredible talent, and it just speaks to like your interest levels, but really your great ability. So if you had an opportunity to be on stage and jam with someone from a different genre than you're typically, I mean, you're a heavy metal dude, like in terms of Brand New Sin, all that stuff, a different genre person to jam with, who would it be?
Man, that is a tough question because I have such a wide variety of backgrounds. So I'm trying to think of like really like left field type of stuff that wouldn't be in the hard rock or heavy metal field. Whew, that's tough, man. I would probably go, and this is again just off the top of my head without me overthinking it. There's a guy named Cody Jinks. He's a country artist, but he's not bro country or the Nashville country. He really comes out of a genre of like the outlaw country has come back. And there's people like Cody Jinks, Paul Coffin, my buddy Whitey Morgan. There's a bunch of those guys that all came out of Texas or different parts of the country, and they're not really accepted by Nashville. But Cody Jinks like got huge in the genre to the point where he sells out small arenas around the country, multiple nights at Red Rocks. And I think I would love to just sit down with him because he is as country as he is. Came from a thrash metal band. He was in a thrash metal band back in the day. Wow. So like he has the background. Just like my buddy, his companion is this guy named Whitey Morgan, and Whitey Morgan's a friend of mine, and he was in a hardcore band in Detroit way back in the day, Detroit and Flint area, and that's how I met him. And then he got in the country. So I think I would love to work and jam with Cody Jinks, just because we have similar backgrounds, and he's gone into something that just is very pure. So it'd be fun to sit down and jam with him.
That's super cool.
Have you done any country? I know you do a lot of covers on YouTube and other things, but have you done any country covers?
Oh, a ton, yeah.
Like Zach, like are you more on the Zach Brown?
Yeah, it'd be more like Zach, but it seems like when I'm doing my covers, my country covers, at least on TikTok, and this is only because I realized where my lane was, and I started looking at my analytics and seeing my age groups that were following me, and 70% of the people that follow me are 35 to 55. So a lot of the bro country or Nashville style now isn't speaking to my people. But when I put up versions of like Kenny Rogers or Alabama or some of that very classic country, Charlie Rich, I do stuff like that, man. I get really big numbers and a great amount of feedback. And that's the country that I grew up on. That's the stuff that my parents and my older brothers listen to. So I like that country a lot. Or Garth Brooks, Garth Brooks. Yeah. But I have done, I can do probably 30 or 40 different Garth Brooks songs, so.
Yeah, I think I heard you at the fair do like Thunder Rolls, and I remember it was like which is such an awesome song, but like it was a sunny day. Alex, I think Alex, you and I were there that day. I don't know why, but you were playing like near. It was at the end of where the Chevy Court was. You were under some tent, and like I remember drinking everything, and someone singing along the song. I'm like, oh my gosh! I'm like, dude, this song is a pretty upsetting song. You get down to the lyrics, like it's a pretty awful situation. And I remember just being like, and the thunder roll, like just being so psyched, and it was like, oh man, that was a great experience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a third verse in that song. That video was banned from CMT because the song is, the guy comes home, he was out cheating on his wife or girlfriend or whatever she was. Yeah. And she knows. But the third verse is she shoots him. She goes, back into the, back down the hall to the dresser drawer, grabs a gun, and this is the last time he'll ever do this again. And she shoots him. And they banned that video. That was a banned video. And the radio version and everything else, they shortened it to 2 verses. But that third verse is it's a real dark song, man.
Yeah.
It's wild, those songs that, to your point, Matt, like you hear and you're just like, oh my God, and you're like loving it. And if you don't listen to the lyrics, they're pretty intense. Dude, some of these songs are pretty intense, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I try. That's what I try to do in a lot of my TikToks, songs that I slow down or stuff that I strip down. I do it, and you'll get this feedback like, "Oh my God, I never listened to the lyrics of that song," and that late. Or you listen to a song like Build Me Up Buttercup, which is this happy song, but like the guy's got his heart broken, man, and this girl ain't calling him back anymore, and you rip me apart, and it's like, or a song like Last Kiss that Pearl Jam did, but it was originally done. Oh. It's a car accident where the girl dies and he's holding her in her arms, and it's this upbeat like, oh where, and it's not. It's like, dude, no, this is horrible. It's a car accident song. So I like doing that. And recently I just did that with No Rain by Blind Melon.
Ooh,
and I slowed that down. And that song's pretty dark too. And
from the album Suicide. Yeah.
Is that why they put the kid in the bumblebee suit just popping around and you think it's all fun? It's like
she did, but if you remember that video, she was getting picked on for wearing the bumblebee outfit. So there was some undertones of her being bullied and all that. And then by the end she had found her people, kind of could be weird with her bumblebee outfit.
Yep.
But that that song blew up on all my socials to the point where I just recorded a version of it that's going to come out, and it's going to have that really dark tinge to it.
I can't wait. I can't wait to hear that. That video, like I try to like Blind Melon is for my college students. Like I've played that video for them, and like that feeling where she like finds her people at the end. Like you want everybody to have that in their life. You know what I mean? And that song kind of catches that. And I was recently somewhere too, and a song like I love like punk and like a lot of like European trashy punk. I don't think they like being called that, but like 99 Red Balloons was on in this bar, and my homegirl was like, "Oh, I love this song. It's so fun." I'm like, "This song is about the end of the world, dude. Like the balloons have been, the nuclear bombs are on the way." She's like, "That's not what it's about. It's about a party." I'm like, "It's about a party,
a birthday party with balloons." Yeah,
it's a party of the end of the world. It's 99 red balloons go by. It's the end. I mean, it's real weird because that song was originally done in German, but it was such a huge hit. They're like, you got to sing this in English, and obviously became a #1 hit here, too. But that's a pretty dark tune, and it's a punky tune. That got me thinking. I wonder if I slowed that down and gave it a dark twinge.
That'd be awesome.
I'm gonna make a note of that, and next week when I start doing my TikToks.
Before you dive into the interview next, where's Blind Melon these days? I just like are they still around?
Shannon Hoon killed himself though, the lead singer.
Oh man.
And he also, by the way, in the Guns N' Roses video and the song Don't Cry, he's the backup singer in it.
He sang backups on a majority of that record, and he's on She Used to Love Her off GNR Lies. He was incredibly close with the GNR camp. So like when you hear that, you used to love her, and they finish and they're like, all right, hey man, let's all go to the bar thing. And it says they mentioned Shannon in there. Yeah. Shannon was a huge part of that. That was before Blind Melon had blown up. And here's go back to Book of Shadows. Now, Book of Shadows, there's a song on Book of Shadows by called Throwing It All Away. It's like track 5. And that song is about Shannon Hoon because Zakk Wylde at that time was about to do a side project because I'm going to go down a rabbit hole real quick. But Zakk Wylde, when he left Ozzy and he was doing something else, he was actually in Guns N' Roses for like a year writing. It was Slash. Before all those guys left, Axl Rose had joined Guns N' Roses, and it just didn't work out, and it fell apart, and that's when everybody got fired. Everyone was fucked up. But Axl and Shannon got really close, and they were writing a record together, and they were going to do some stuff together. And then Shannon went to New Orleans, and that's where Shannon ended up dying. And that whole song is about. So when you listen to Book of Shadows, Throwing It All Away is all about Shannon Hoon. So,
dude, thanks for sharing that because I am a massive Guns N' Roses fan, and like Lies and Use Your Illusion 2, I think are cool. Like, there's a great book called Watch You Bleed about like the rise and fall of Guns N' Roses, which brings me to the part of the interview where we want to learn all this stuff about you, and I'm already like getting goosebumps on some of these stories. So I think about when we learn about different people for me in the creative space and their background and how they get into certain things. For Alex and I, it's learning a lot about like other cooking shows and videographers and things like that. So tell us about you getting into the music world, forming Brand New Sin. Like, how did you get to where you are? But like, take us in the way back machine, baby.
Well, it started real young. It started very, very young. My mom had played piano, but only like at church when she was younger. And there was always a piano in the house. And I had two older brothers, and she tried to kind of get them to sit at the piano, and they just didn't really give a shit. So by the time they got to me, uh, I gravitated to it myself. So like the age of 4 or 5, I started sitting down and plunking away at it, and like just playing around with it every day. We'd sit there at the piano at the house, and eventually my mom's like, "All right, I'm gonna, I'm gonna teach you a little bit." She didn't have a lot of knowledge, but she could teach me, you know, the scales and how to read music. So she taught me how to read music at like the age of 4 and 5. So at the same age I was learning how to read words, I was learning how to read music.
Wow.
And and then I was teaching myself songs like Mary Had a Little Lamb and all this stuff, to the point where I eventually would grab my boomboxer at the time, because I'm almost 50. So I had a record player. This is like the late 70s, early 80s. So I would take my record player out of my bedroom, come out, set it next to the piano, put on records and put on the songs that I like, and then figure out how to play them. So I was playing by ear, but also learn how to read music. And then eventually I got into lessons. Um, and I taught myself how to play and sing pretty much all on my own, but I took some piano lessons, got formal training, how to play some classical stuff and all that. But I didn't really want to play classical. I wanted to play just the stuff that I liked. And then I went to college for something completely different. I was very musical, but it didn't seem like the right thing to do. And no one was encouraging that. I was top 10 in my class. I had great SAT scores. I was a football star, and everyone was like, "Well, yeah, you got to go to college. You got to play football. You got to pick a career that." No one was like, "Yeah, you're a really great musician. Let's try to develop this." So I went to college and got a degree in history and a minor in secondary education. I was going to coach. My plan was to coach football and teach social studies, or at least stay in the college level and maybe teach history and all that. But as I got near the end of college, it's like, yeah, well, who would?
Yeah,
especially considering where I am now,
Yeah.
But I just didn't want to do that. When college got done, I'm like, I don't want to do any of this. And I kind of floated around for a while, and I moved back to Syracuse. I was in Rochester, and I drove myself into the local music scene. And I was going to places like Styleens and the Lost Horizon and Planet 505 and the Wolf Inn, and there were so many venues at that time that were supporting like original music. It was a completely different time in the mid and late 90s as it is now. So some of my friends that I grew up from high school had a band called Jameis Breed, and they were kind of getting big at the time, and they were packing the clubs. So I started working with them, just moving the gear around and meeting everybody in the scene. And at the time, I was dating this girl who ended up becoming my first wife. I've had two, so if we end up getting that thing, I don't want to confuse. But my first wife worked at the Dinosaur Barbecue also at the same time. And at Dinosaur in the mid to late 90s and early 2000s was nothing but like a blues point. That was like a hotbed.
Loved it.
So I mean, I saw people like Derek Trucks played there on like a Tuesday night. He was like 15 at the time, before he joined the Allman Brothers and became Tedeschi Trucks and everything else. So, watching these blues legends like Charlie Musselwhite and all these, people coming through. So I just immersed myself into the scene. And eventually people kind of got wind that I was a singer. They're like, and they started inviting me up. Hey, come up and sing a song with us at the Dinosaur. Come up and sing a song with us at Styleens. And so many people were like, "Man, why don't you have your own band? Well, you're better than the guy you just went up and like sang with, And I just didn't know what to do. Or the people that were coming to me, like I had really high expectations of what my first band was going to be like. So I just couldn't find anybody. And then my ex-wife and I moved to Baltimore, and we just were, I think every young person goes through a phase, especially when you're in your Syracuse. You're like, this place sucks. I want to go someplace different. So we moved to Baltimore because I had a good friend that was actually in that band, Jameis Breed, who had moved down there, was helping his fiance run this boat trailer company. And he's like, that her father owned. He said, "Come down here. You got a job. You can work at the boat trailer company. Just, find your way." And I moved down there and I found a recording school. So I'm like, well, maybe I'll go learn how to record, do live sound, maybe get into a career of like, you can work in TV, you can work in movies. Sound is everywhere. So it's not just like, hey, I'm the sound guy at the club,
Yep.
So it's like, all right, maybe I'll do that. So I went to a sound school down there. We lived there for like a year and a half. And then we decided, like, man, we really miss home. We really missed our parents. Baltimore just wasn't speaking to our soul. And we're like, all right, this is a cool adventure, but let's go back home. And right before I moved back home, the band that would become Brand New Sin was already an existing band with a different singer. They were called God Below. And they were like a metalcore, hardcore band that was getting a lot of attention in the Northeast, right around the same time that like bands like Killswitch Engage, Shadows Fall, Hatebreed, all these Lamb of God, all these bands that really blew up. Every Time I Die, a ton of these bands that end up blowing up in the metal scene in the early 2000s, they were a part of that scene. But they were having problems with their singer. Their singer and the rest of the band were just not getting along. They were not seeing eye to eye. But during that time, they had gotten a lot of label interest, all the way from Atlantic Records all the way down to a ton of indie labels. So they kicked the singer out, and they told some of these labels, they're like, "Hey, we're gonna go find somebody else. We actually might want to try to change a little bit of the sound of the band. It just depends on who we find." So I get a phone call from a friend of mine, and it says, "Hey, they're trying people out. They can't find anybody. I put your name in the hat. So when you come home next weekend before you move home, swing by Daddy's Junkie Music in Mattydale, which used to be up there."
Love that place.
And a couple of my guitar players in Brand New Sin worked up there, and I stopped up there, and they gave me a tape, and they're like, "Here's a tape. Here's the demo songs that we're working on with no vocals. Why don't you sit with it for about a week or two, see what you can come up with, and give us a call, and we'll get a tryout." So I scheduled a tryout for September 11th, 2001. So needless to say, the tryout did not happen on that day. We pushed it. I literally just moved home the night before. So we pushed it. And on September 17th, the following Monday, I had a chance to go try out at this practice spot that's up near where, I don't know how you pronounce it. You know where the candy company is up on the north side of Syracuse? Brock's? Or what is it? You know what I'm talking about?
Brock's, yeah.
Yeah, I went up there. You can get the chocolate cup potato chips. Like across the street from there is a building used to called the Love Shack. It was owned by this guy named Dave Love. And that's where a ton of bands rehearsed. It was there, and there was another place up on Middle Street. But there's probably like 20, 25 bands that had spaces in this building. So I went there and tried out on September 17th. They had tried out 17 guys. And that day I went in, nervous as hell. I tried out, and I got the gig. It was my first band. I had never tried for a band. I got it, and I'm going to squish down. Over the next 4 weeks, we just spent literally 7 days a week at that practice room every day at like 4 o'clock until midnight, just jamming and getting to know each other and drinking a ton of beer and writing songs. And then this label out of New Jersey was finally interested. Like, all right, we want to hear what you're doing. Can you get in a studio? And they sent us some money, and we went and recorded a studio in Liverpool, which is no longer there. It's where Freedom of Espresso is, right across the street from Cobblestone. Yeah. It was on the third floor of that building. There's a studio called Village Recorders. And we went up there and we recorded 2 songs. And the next day, the guys from that small record label out of Jersey City came up, heard the demo, and offered us a contract on the spot.
Wow.
So I joined the band 3 weeks later, signed a record deal, was in New York City a couple weeks after that, working with a lawyer to solidify the record deal. Then they gave us a bunch of money, and then we spent the rest of the winter into 2000, from 2001 and 2002, recording that first record. And then by March of that year, we were on tour with Motorhead. So things happened really fast, come from September to March, real fast.
Did you get the job on the spot? Like how long when you auditioned?
On the spot.
Like literally there, they were like, "You're it."
Yeah, we really think you're the guy. So let's, not all the members were there. So they're like, well, let's call our bass player and let's get the other guitar player here. We'll come back in a couple hours. So me and the one guitar player, Brian, went back to his house. He lived up off of Butternut, We went there and we grabbed another, 12 pack of Milwaukee's best ice and
Hell yeah.
drank a little bit more and bonded and went back to the practice room. And it was like, after that, it was like, there was no like, hey, we're still thinking of other guys. It was like, it was on right after that. And then everything, then all of this happened. All these records behind me happened, from there started my career. So I think I know that was a long way to get there, but I mean, it was quite a journey to get me to that spot,
Listen, Joe, you go dude, I'm like I'm like, I keep looking at the clock. I'm like, dude, I want to talk to this guy for hours. So don't ever hold anything back. Because at that point too, right? I mean, you're talking about, you get involved with like organizations like WWE and you're touring with Motorhead and like things are ramping up. Like what was that like? And how did you handle that? Like I think about like our it's a cooking show. So like our deal isn't that big of a deal, right? But like you're on stage, you're touring, like our thing is much more contained. So what was that like for you as a human? And was it fun? Was it awesome? What was the scary part?
It was the greatest time of my life. And it was so exciting, even though the industry at that time was really falling apart. Like we signed a record deal, the absolute worst time in industry. That was like there was no Spotify, there was no iTunes. Everyone was just stealing music. There was no revenue. Like no one was buying CDs anymore. So we had signed a record deal at a really bad time. So like nobody was making money. Labels were shutting down left and right. Budgets were going down. Like there was no revenue coming in. So that really worked against us. But at the same time, it was really exciting because, we were getting to tour and meet so many of our idols, like right out of the gate. And I don't think I really thought about it because everything was happening so fast that I just and I didn't even know if I could do this. Like I had never fronted a band, I never toured and never recorded a record. Like all of this happened. And I was like, it basically, and this is, I've equated it to, I didn't know how to swim and someone threw me into the deep end of the pool with no life jacket and no one's going to come and help me. So it's like, all right, good luck.
That's almost like how you do this stuff. You fake it till you make it. You have to get thrown into it to figure it out.
But I think all those years of me being, one, a music fan, and two, like really observing all those years when I was like in the Syracuse music scene and like paying attention to the older people that I was meeting, people like, at the time, Los Blancos or Joe Whiting or Ronnie Lee, all those, legends in this town that I got to know at that time. And I really listened to them. And then I did the same thing when I was out on the road. I just I wanted to learn. And I would, I'm always a student. I'm always learning. I'm always wanting to do something. I'm never satisfied, but I know that there's always room for growth and always room for improvement. And that's what I did all those years. And it was great. I mean, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean, my first marriage fell apart because I was gone all the time. But then all the rest of those years that I was on the road, I mean, I didn't have kids. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have a car. Like my overhead was so little that I could be a broke ass musician and be gone and not feel like, well, I got to get home because, I'm not taking care of this or that. Like I literally had the life of, financially it was, let me put it this way. It was the best decision I ever made in my life, but financially it was the absolute fucking worst decision I ever made. Dude. We were so fucking broke. Like if I had $20 in my pocket, I was like, this is a good day.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Dave Grohl, like his book that, I don't know if you read it, but Dave Grohl's book, they're talking about how they had Taco Bell, like they would eat like couple tacos from Taco Bell and they would live on no food. I mean, they literally would be happy if they could go to Taco Bell those days.
That's why you always couldn't wait to get to the venue because the venue would either get some pizzas or, they give you a dinner buyout or there'd be some kind of catering because we lived off dollar menus because sometimes our per diem was like $10. So you went to the dollar menu and you got like 10 hamburgers, or you stopped and you grabbed 5 packages of ramen and 6 cans of tuna and a water, and that's how we made it. But you relied on the fans because the fans knew you were broke, and they're like, "Hey, we'll buy you drinks," so you didn't have to worry about alcohol. If you wanted to do drugs, there was drugs for free given
Yeah.
to you by your fans. And me being single, I would cozy up with a few ladies around the country that, like, I knew when I rolled into town, I could go sleep at their house. I could get a shower. They were going to cook me some food, or we
Yeah.
had people that knew that would do this for the band. So it's like, yeah, you did what you had to do until and then I come home and I was living with my parents. So there was,
That's
it,
insane.
it was the best time of my life. I learned so much. I don't regret anything about it because I think it's what got me to where I am now. But man, thinking back on it, it was very blurry because
Yeah.
those like 2001 to the end of 2007, and I left the band in January 2008. So that 6 years was like, I mean, that could be a podcast within itself. But those are great stories. I had a lot of fun, man. I got to do a lot of cool things.
Your passion for storytelling, like, I mean, it's why you were great when you were hosting radio shows, and just listening to you now, man. And the passion comes through in the music and stuff. So I want to ask one more question, then we're going to move on to the next section. But I've been thinking about this
Sure.
question a lot. And like people like my wife or Alex or some of our friends that, like, people that I tend to work with, spend a lot of time with, it tends to be they're people that are passionate about something. Like, I love partnering with Alex and stuff, and we'll disagree on shit, but you're like, okay, this motherfucker super cares about this particular camera angle. Or I'll like put up
Yeah,
a bit about like, no, I want to tell this story about this dish, right? So what's one song that you like almost can't play, you're so passionate about it? Like, what's one thing that just channels all of you?
Well, there's one. When I left Brand New Sin, and I was doing my solo stuff. I started a band, and it was myself and Brian, who's in Brand New Sin, who was no longer in Brand New Sin at the time. He goes by the name of, we call him Slider, and then myself, us two, and John Hannes, who owns Corner Bar and Lost Horizon, plays with Mike Powell.
Yep.
He kind of got us together. And he's like, "Hey, let's put a band together. Why not?" And we grabbed our buddy Luke to play drums. We grabbed another guy, Dave, and we started this band called Elephant Mountain. And we spent pretty much a year upstairs of Corner Bar, just kind of writing and playing just more, instead of metal, it was more rock and more Southern rock. And we did a song at that time. I was going through a lot because when I left Brand New Sin, part of the reason why I left Brand New Sin is I lost my father, like, really suddenly, and under really, really it just sucky circumstances. I mean, but I wrote a song about my father called "Pray." It was really about the day that everything happened, And not to get really dark for a minute, but like, I woke up one morning, I had found my dad in the shower. He was already passed away. So, it was really, really fucked up times. So, but I wrote a song about that thing, that day, and everything that happened. And every time I play that song, and some people ask me to play it on the piano sometimes, and I'm like, I just can't. I'm so connected to it. I think I needed to play that song and write that song and able to process a lot that happened that day. And once in a while I will play it, but there's a lot of times I can't because it really it brings up a lot. And I remember recording it in the studio, and a friend of mine was there to kind of help me do some vocals. He's also a musician. I'm like, "Hey, just if I'm hitting a wrong note or something like that, let me know." And I remember coming in from like cutting the vocals of that song and coming into the control room, and both the producer and that guy were just like in tears, like, "Man, we're so sorry." I'm like, "How'd it sound?" They're like, "It sounded great, but holy shit, now that we know what that song's about and what you just did, it was like an exorcism that happened during that song." And there's been most of my songs are based in very personal experiences, whether me or something that happened around me or someone close to me. But that one probably just so personal, just because of the circumstances,
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm glad you had that cathartic experience, man. That's intense. But I think, one of the things that you can tell when people really care and they're passionate about their craft. And unfortunately, I feel like sometimes in life, like whether it's trauma that causes that or something, like something's got to unlock that stuff sometimes. And I'm glad that you're able to do something great with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm blessed in the fact that like I have an outlet that allows me to be able to express myself. You know, music has saved me. It's saved so many, even if you're not a musician. I mean, everyone can think of a song that's like, man, that song didn't come on that day. I don't know what would have happened. You know, whether it's the very extreme thoughts of where you can take your brain, or it was just like, how am I going to get through this moment, or how am I going to get through this day? And a song comes on. But as a musician and any artist, when you have that ability, or even as you use cooking, you can look at cooking as that, dude, that is the way I'm going to help process and express myself. And in that regards, I feel very blessed that I have that. But at the same time, it makes me such a deep person that sometimes it helps, but then it can also go the other way, and that's why we've lost musicians too.
Yeah.
Because it's a very fine line and a gray area that it can go from helping you to really taking you off an edge where some extreme things happens, whether they're drug use, alcohol abuse, suicide, just very mental healthy type of stuff.
I love that you shared that too, the mental health aspect of music. Like I mean, I don't know, a lot of my problems in my life have been self-created, and music's kind of helped. Okay, you know what, like you can get better than this, or you're better than this. But we want to hear you express yourself in another way too. So Alex,
Matt, real quick, I want to just say, if you going way back in your story here, I think you would have been an awesome social history teacher, social studies with music. I could picture you as like a musical teacher, like bringing music into the classroom.
Yeah, I would have been a really cool. I would have been the cool teacher for sure.
Oh yeah,
oh definitely.
And that's what I'm like. All right, if we're looking at the timelines, or we're looking at a different timeline. There definitely could have been a moment where that would have been, and I would have loved that career, but my soul was like, no, you need something more, and I was like,
maybe someday you'll be that like TikTok teacher.
Maybe there's some things I'm working on that I'm going to woodshed over the next year or two that's going to kind of incorporate a lot of those things, but.
Or Blind Melon.
I don't want to give it all away yet.
You're going to front
or Blind Melon, or Skinner. Or Skinner's going to call me. Who knows?
I mean, if we can ever help with anything, man, we will, because we're huge fans of yours, and you're great at that. And I like that your willingness to be free and move around. Like, I mean, and the risk taking, which what we're doing with the show. So Alex,
you gotta be, unless you're gonna throw yourself and all your eggs in one basket, especially as a working musician in Syracuse. Like, you gotta be diverse, or you're gonna pigeonhole yourself, and you're just gonna be. No offense to the guys or the people that are playing in bars, and most of them are weekend warriors. But the people that have had success and be able to play and become a full-time musician in this town are people that are incredibly versatile and can play themselves into any situation. And that's how you're going to get work, So, there's a lot of times there's, songs and genres and things I don't necessarily enjoy, but like, hey, it's better than the alternative. So I'm like, wait a minute. I don't want to play Don't Stop Believing right now because I really don't like the song. But man, these people are having fun and they're paying me a good amount of money. So this is way better than the alternative option of doing something I don't fucking like to do. So check myself and shut up and sing Don't Stop Believing.
I think this is a good transition. One, I'll tell you a story, and we want to play a video clip for you, which transitions into your kind of life a little bit. But back in, 2015, 14, you were playing in New Year's Eve at the Hotel Syracuse. And speaking of people paying you money, I think me and my friends probably paid you a lot of money to play the Big Show's theme song about 10 times.
Yes.
And I think after the first 5, you were like, okay, like there's other people here. Like, we're like, come on, just one more. And we were cheering and chanting you up every single time you did it. Huge.
I remember that. I totally forgot about that until right now.
Yeah. Wrestling fans from back in the day were like, he's got to play the Big Show song again. And because it's such a short song, it just wasn't enough. We needed like 10. Yeah.
No, I make it down to like a minute and a half or a minute long. Yeah, it's quick.
Yeah. speaking of the Big Show, we're gonna roll a clip. You've seen this clip before, but we have a question about it after. Go ahead, Susan.
Okay. There we are.
I almost wore that outfit for the podcast, the Big Show's crotch strap.
I wish you did, dude.
So this experience, first of all, this whole WWE side, which I'm a huge WWF, fan from back in the day. I got the old school Winged Eagle replica belt, which it was a
she hits people with when his kids are online. You're grounded.
It was I was bored during COVID purchase, but what was this experience like working with the Big Show and the WWE? Like, I got to hear all about it.
It was awesome. I mean, how we got the gig was we were on tour Motorhead. It was the second time we were touring Motorhead, and this was in 2005. And we played at a place called the Hampton Beach Casino, which is in Hampton Beach, New Hampshire. It's not a casino like you think a casino. It's a gathering place. Legendary venue that's literally right in the middle of a very, very summer town. Like, it's only happening in the summer. So we were opening that night, and the guys from Motorhead and their crew were like, hey, Triple H and Stephanie are going to be here tonight because obviously, Motorhead did Triple H's theme song. And they're like, we're hoping they get here to see you. They'll probably dig you. We're like, yeah, they're probably going to roll in the last minute. Totally rock star. They're not going to be interested in us at all. So we get up on stage, and we're playing. And then all of a sudden, I see these two people run down in between the barricade and the stage, like where, photographers and all that are. And it's Triple H and Stephanie. And they're like running down. They're like, raging. And Triple H's got his hair down and his head banging. And, we're fist bumping. And I'm like, what the fuck? This is happening right now. This is so cool. So we got done, and I walk off stage, and I go to the back dressing room. I'm sitting in my dressing room and get a knock on the door. I'm like, yeah, come in. The rest of the band was getting their gear out. I'm the singer. I didn't touch shit. I just went to the dressing room. So I'm sitting in the dressing room, and Triple H and Stephanie come in. They're like, hey, man, the rest of the band coming back? I'm like, yeah. They're like, we want to hang out. So, long story short, we completely hit it off with Triple H and Stephanie, and they're like, here's our contacts, keep in touch, who's your manager, all this stuff. So we gave them all this stuff. They're like, we're going to take this back. We think you'd be perfect. We're going to take it back to the bosses and
what
let
year
them
was
know.
this?
Like,
it was like
2005.
So like 4 years into the band.
Yeah. So we're like, it's one thing if you meet somebody from wrestling, maybe a jobber or somebody like that, and they say they're going to go back and do something. You're like, oh, maybe they will. But this is the boss's daughter, and,
He runs that shit. Yeah.
They run the shit at the time, and so needless to say, we got a phone call a few weeks later. Our manager got a phone call and said, WWE definitely wants to work with you guys. You just don't know in what capacity yet. So, we're going to be in touch. And then the fall of 2005, a few months later, we were on tour with Black Label Society. And I remember that we were staying in a Motel 6. We were playing in Charleston, South Carolina. And our manager called, said, hey, WWE called. They picked a wrestler for you that they want to do the theme song. We're like, well, who? And they're like, well, Big Show. We're like,
were you guys at that point like picking wrestlers? Like, you're like, I hope it's this guy, or was it?
We didn't know. We didn't know who the fuck it was going to be at that point. Like who at that time, everything was popping because at that point, WWE had bought WCW, had bought ECW. They owned everybody, so it could have been any wrestler at that time. So we had a conversation with Jim Johnstone, who wrote all of the WWE theme songs all the way up until he left the company probably 4 or 5 years ago. He was responsible for even all the way back to 1984 when they did the Rock and Wrestling Connection. They had that record and all. He wrote all that stuff. So we had a conversation with him, and he's like, all right, take the theme song that they had already had that was sung by Michael Hayes, the original Big Show's theme song. That was like more bluesy. He's like, well, you know. He's like, he goes, I want you guys to just slow it down, mud it up, give it some more attitude, and work on it. And we're like, well, when are we going to record it? They're like, well, you're going to have a day off in between Springfield, Massachusetts on this tour and Toledo, Ohio. You got 2 days off. So you're going to be done in Springfield. You're going to come to Stamford, Connecticut. You're going to spend the day in the studio recording the song. So we did. We spent a day recording at WWE Studios, which was very surreal. We got to meet so many people that day.
Crazy.
See how the behind the scenes shit worked at headquarters in Stamford. And then we left and we went back out on the road, and they called us. They're like, well, Big Show's hurt right now. We don't know what we're going to do with him, but this theme song is going to be his theme song. So 2006 comes around. It was early 2006 when he came back, and they're like, all right, we're jumping him to ECW, because they had Monday Night Raw, Thursday Night SmackDown, and then they do ECW, whatever it was called. I can't remember what the name of the show was, but they were doing ECW. But they would tape ECW and SmackDown on the same night, on Tuesday night. So they do Raw on Monday nights, they do SmackDown and ECW on Tuesdays. They do SmackDown, rip everything down, change the lighting, put up the ECW set. So, I mean, there's so much I could talk about with the WWE, but like to get up the speed to that, when they finally did debut his theme song, it was an ECW pay-per-view that they did from the Hammerstein Ballroom in 2006. It was like May of 2006, because we were in New York City recording our third record at the time. We were staying in Brooklyn. So we rented the pay-per-view. They gave us a code to like, hey, call this number, you get a free pay-per-view. And we watched it, and they Big Show debuted with that theme song that night.
Wow.
And then a few weeks later, that video was taken. They had us come up to Albany, and that was done in Albany. That was a SmackDown ECW recording, and they put us right behind the announcer's booth. We had, VIP treatment all day.
Now,
but that wasn't the first
Big
time
Show? Like, have you met the Big Show?
We had met him already prior. No, we had already met him. Like when we recorded that song in the fall of 2005. Another week later, we were out, and we had another day off on a travel day in between, like Madison, Wisconsin, and maybe St. Louis. It was St. Louis. We're driving Madison to St. Louis, and WWE was doing Raw in Indianapolis. So our manager and record label were like, you were supposed to do a radio thing today, but we're routing you to go do stuff with WWE. So WWE invited us down. We got to go to watch Raw in Indianapolis that night. So we got there early. We pulled up. They had us pull our van and trailer inside of the arena and park next to all the buses and shit. And Triple H was our contact guy. He came out, and he's like, he was hurt at the time. I think that was shortly after he had like ripped his quad from his fucking bone. So he wasn't wrestling at the time. So he just took us on a personal tour that day. We had lunch with Vince. We got to meet everybody backstage, Sergeant Slaughter, Ricky Steamboat, all those guys were working behind the scenes. And then we finally had a chance to meet Big Show. And Big Show was still wrestling WWE, but they hadn't rebranded him yet. And he's like, I heard the song. We got some pictures with him. That dude is massive, man. It doesn't, when you stand next to somebody who's 7'2" and 500 pounds, it is, I mean, we've met tall people in the basketball team, right? But it's another thing to have 500 pounds on their frame instead of 200.
Yeah.
So, but that day was just so surreal. So Vince, everybody took good care of us. And I will say the WWE treated us like absolute gold when they didn't have to.
Yeah.
And we got to get up in the ring that day.
Yeah, anything. They could have just like passed it off. Like, here's money. See ya. Never. But in Triple H, I mean, it sounds like a super cool dude too, which I guess they kind of expect.
Same with Stephanie. I love them.
Yeah.
No, they were so cool. And everybody that we met, the cool thing, the best part that I liked about that night was Triple H brought us into the room where Shawn Michaels had just come back. It was after like he had that falling out, and he had just got back. So he was wrestling that night, and I couldn't remember who he was wrestling because I was just like, HBK. It's it's like one of those. Yeah. One of those things. I was like, holy crap! And my mind was blown with everybody that we met that day, and I wouldn't even go meet the Undertaker because he's my favorite wrestler, and even Big Show, and everyone's like, hey, come on, we'll go meet Mark. I'm like, nope. I will act like an idiot around him. I will not meet him. I ended up meeting him later on, and he was awesome too. But we got to go in the room with the writers and HBK and the guy he was wrestling and watch them do the storyline, how they were planning out the match and everything. So once I saw that, I viewed wrestling so differently because I actually am watching it completely differently now because I know all like the insider like little things they do.
So it's not real. You're saying it's not real? I have a less cool story.
No, it's but what those dudes put their bodies through, and there's no off season like football, basketball. There's off season, there's injured reserve. There's time like those dudes are wrestling through injuries and constant like wrestlers don't. I mean, yeah, everyone's like, oh, it's fake. It's like, why don't you go travel with them for a little bit? You tell me how fake it is. You know, like the outcomes are fake and the acting is fake.
How
but like
battered they are.
How bad they put their bodies through and the amount of shit. But
even the rope,
that whole experience
are like hard as like when you train. I had a friend that was training on these ropes and like locally, and they would have just like full like red, just touring their whole sides apart because it's like elevator cables. It's not like bouncy like ropes.
And the ring isn't that soft either. Like we went out to the ring that day, and Triple H kind of threw us into. I mean, you really got to throw your weight into those ropes to get them to bend. Because if you just kind of like go like that, they'll springboard you. They'll just like, and it'll knock you right on your ass. So it was eye-opening. And 12-year-old Joel that was like, you know, into wrestling was just in his heyday. So there was a lot of other instances that we got to do a lot of cool shit for the next year or so. We did a lot of stuff for the WWE. We were the only band to ever do an acoustic version. And we did that at WWE Studios. You can see that on YouTube.
That's awesome.
And they sent a limo down to New York City full of food and beverages and brought us up to Stanford. We recorded that day. They put us back in the limo, took us out to dinner, sent us back to New York City. So, no, you know, at that time, you know, my experience with them was nothing but absolute professionalism. And everybody that we worked with was fantastic. There wasn't, I'm sure there's assholes, but, you know, everybody that we worked with and we were around were absolutely cool because a lot of those dudes want to be musicians, right?
Yeah,
you know, they're like, man, we're wrestlers, but man, I'd love to be a rock star. You guys are a rock star. Like, well, we'd love to be wrestlers. So there's kind of this little give and take. But man, just like, and even now, like even during COVID, when I got the phone call to do the AEW theme song for Big Show, where now Paul, you know, because he doesn't own the Big Show rights, you know, and to think that he's still coming out to my song, you know, so 2006 to now, you know, 18 years of me being the voice, and I can walk into these places and no one even knows who the fuck I am. And then I'm like, dude, I sing that. Even when I post on it, like on TikTok or YouTube, and I get all these views, and they're like, "You're lying, you're full of shit." You know, I'm like, I'm not, but I mean, you can easily just Google it and realize I'm the actual guy. And they're like, but you can't. There's so many people out there that just like those wrestling people are like those people that are out there, like they're out there. But like I don't care. I don't have to prove myself to you.
Yeah.
But yes, I sing the theme songs, you know.
That's so dope. So, you know, I want to ask you about the show that we shot for that goes with this one is about throwing a tailgate before a great concert. And I do want to point something out though. Before a great show, like cool things can happen in bars too, or whatever you're doing, going to dinner before the show. Like, I mean, Alex and I, we've gone to dinner before seeing like Elton John and stuff like that. But we went to see Blink-182 a while ago in Charlotte, and before there was like a bar, this cool Irish bar, a couple floors on it, and we're drinking, like everybody's hyped for the show, and everybody in this place is definitely getting across the street and going to this show. And someone put in "I Miss You" on the jukebox, and the entire bar was singing along together. It was like out of a TV commercial. Like it was unreal, right?
Like so pure synergy, man.
Yeah, dude. So when I'm thinking about that type of feeling, though, when we throw tailgates and we throw bangers, For you, tell us about like what makes a great. Like, you're going to a show. What makes a great tailgate for you? What gets you hyped? What music you play in this tailgate? What are we cooking? What are we eating? Roll us through, babe.
Oh man, I mean, it's changed a lot over the years. I mean, when I was younger, it was like, all right, do we have enough drugs? Do we have enough alcohol to make this happen? But now my concert experiences now, I don't want to be too messed up for them, man. The tickets are goddamn expensive now, so it's like I'll spend a lot of money. I want to do this, but like I want to eat something good. You know, whether we're cooking in the parking lot or we go out to dinner somewhere cool,
Yeah.
and get something. And then I just want one or two drinks, and I want to just get hyped up. My favorite tailgate of all time, and I would kind of try to recreate this one. Metallica played at this New York State Fairgrounds. The fair wasn't going on. This was in '94, early June of '94, which is a crazy weekend because I'll tell you about my weekend. I'll get to the story. So Friday night, I was in college, but my girlfriend was still a senior in high school. So we went to her senior ball on Friday night.
Oh, yeah.
So we did that. So we had that. The next day we woke up, Metallica, Suicidal Tendencies, and Danzig were at the grandstand at the fair.
Sick.
So that was part of the Live Shit Binge and Purge tour. They put out a box set, and that was part of that tour. And then Sunday was a day off. And then Monday, I had front row seats to see Pink Floyd at the Dome on their final tour. Like, that doesn't happen in Syracuse anymore, right?
Yeah.
Right? So, but the tailgate that we had at Metallica was the best. Like, so many people. Our whole crew had tickets for both Pink Floyd and Metallica. So we went to Metallica. We had a grill. One of my buddies brought a 6-foot bong. We had, at the time they still made beer balls.
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys old enough remember beer balls?
Oh, yeah.
So we had some Genesee beer balls, or it might have been Utica Club or Matt's or whatever. We had beer balls. So like my buddy had a trunk, and we just threw ice in the trunk. So the beer balls are in the trunk. We had the bong out. The cops didn't give a shit. They're like, we don't care if you're smoking. Just keep everything cool. So the whole time in that parking lot, everyone is just cranking Metallica out of their car stereos. And then one would come on, like, Master Puppets come on, and people get up on top of their cars and be like, Master. It was just like this, like the vibe was so awesome. And drinking all afternoon. We got there at like noon. I don't think the gates opened till like 6 o'clock. So, we had 6 hours in the sun in the parking lots around the fair. And at the time, the grandstand, the track was still there. So, like, parking was just, you were scattered all around the fair.
Dirt, though, right? Wasn't it just straight dirt in the track?
Oh, yeah. It was dirt, hard clay and everything.
And this was summer, so at least it was warm out. Like warmish out.
Yeah, we did burgers. We did dogs. We drank so much beer. Bong hits out the wazoo. And like just the camaraderie of a Metallica show and the intensity of Metallica, because Metallica was on top of the world then. They just put out the Black record. They were doing no wrong. And I'd never seen Metallica. I was supposed to see them twice before, but my mom wouldn't let me go see them when I was they came in 88 and they were playing at the War Memorial with Queensryche open. And my mom's like, nope, school night, not going. Yeah. And the second time they played the next summer, they were at Weedsport, and I couldn't get a ride, so I didn't see them then. So it took another 5 years before I finally got to see them. But like, I think a good tailgate is not necessarily about the food that you eat or what you're drinking. It's the vibe that is created around the tailgate. Like you said, you were in that bar. I Miss You came on, and then no matter what conversation was going on, everybody became this like gelatinous blob that were all like an amoeba, like just feeling all the energy and getting stoked for the show. And that's exactly what I felt that day at Metallica. Like I can't remember if the burgers or the dogs were good.
Yeah.
If the weed was amazing. Who gives a shit? We're at Metallica. Then you get into Metallica and
Yeah, dude. Like when you're saying that, actually, so we're gonna do this final section. And speaking of Metallica gets us to that point, right? So you're about to ride the lightning, and we're going to throw some lightning questions at you. So you're going to answer. You're going to get 2 options. You got to answer it and tell us why, Joe. You ready?
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready to go.
All right. Would you rather crush on stage? You're singing, this dude's playing the guitar with either Tom Morello or Kenny Wayne Shepherd.
Kenny Wayne Shepherd.
Okay.
And why? Just because I don't know. I think I'd vibe with Kenny more. I like my voice and my style just would vibe more. Even though Tom Morello is an absolute legend, it'd be fun. But I think I would just absolutely love to crush into a blues rock groove with Kenny Wayne Shepherd.
Totally fair. I mean, I'm a huge, like, I got a Tom Morello's, like, a book about him right here. I'm obsessed with him. But Kenny Wayne, my wife and I know it's your lightning round question, but we went to see the Hendrix Experience, and it was sick, bro. And like Zach
I was there.
Remember, he was like walking, like I had to move my drinks because he was walking and playing the guitar behind his head.
Yep.
And my wife, having not, like, she wasn't familiar, like, visually on what some of these people look like. So one of my favorite songs, and yours too, Voodoo Child, comes out. But like Kenny Wayne Shepherd comes out, and before he touches the guitar, he's standing there and putting his guitar, and he has like a big belt buckle that says KWS. And my wife's kind of like, who is this guy? And then like a second in, she's like, oh my God, it's amazing. Oh, that's great.
Amazing, dude. And his singer Noah like crushed it that night. I was that was actually, other than Zach, just because he's my boy, and and I gotta say it, but like I thought Kenny Wayne and Noah like stole the show that night.
Yeah, and there was a dude, Johnny Lang, who played like he played All in the Watchtower, which is pretty sick too. Yeah,
I love Johnny Lang too.
So you've told us some awesome stories. Where would you rather be, on the road or in the studio?
Ooh.
If you asked me that question like 15 years ago, I would absolutely say on the road. Now I would lean more towards a studio, just because I've gotten better at like creating. That's a tough question, but I would still say the road, just because, man, there's just something cool about rolling into a different town and not knowing what you're getting into that night. Like with the crowd and the different people that you meet, like all the years that I've toured, and even when I toured in 2022, it would just, I forgot how much it is to like go to different places and see. America is so big, the United States is so big, and there's so many different pockets of people and cultures and food and breweries and just how they operate, so. And then when you get people that come up to you, whether they just seen you for the first time or they're fans of you, and come up, and I like meeting these people and like, and hearing their stories, because it's like, I never even knew this person existed, but I've affected their life, or like a song that I did something to them. Like there's people all around the world that I'll never meet, never know even exist, that I've like, what I'm doing here in this little studio sometimes is affecting someone, and like being out there on the front lines and getting to do that and feeling the energy of the room and the nervousness of like, oh my God, I'm getting up on stage in front of a crowd that doesn't really know who I am. If I'm opening for someone, I got to prove myself. Like here in Syracuse, everyone's like, it sounds cliche, but like, it's just Joe, like, not that I don't love my tone, but I don't have that nervousness when I'm walking into Shifty. So I'm like, I've done this 100 times, but when you're like in, Des Moines, Iowa for the first time, and you're getting up in front of a full club that doesn't really know who you are, and I'm just there with my piano, and I'm just like, hey. And then the energy of going up through me to like prove myself and to like just put it all out there and watch people interact and pull them in. There's nothing like that in the world, man. And like, I love creating in the studio, but there's nothing like the live experience like that.
I think both of them have to go together. Like you get the after on the tour, and you see all these people that know you and you listen to you, and then you're like hyped to go back in the studio to create more. I think they have to be.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Okay, that awesome question, Alex. That's a sick question.
I made it up myself.
Yeah, you should be proud. And the answer was sick. So here's one for you. Who do you see more as a better pure hardcore rock star? The Black Sabbath version of Ozzy or the Use Your Illusion version of Axl Rose?
Oh, absolutely Black Sabbath with Ozzy. That's not a question. I love Guns N' Roses, and I love that era. They became, otherworldly during that time. But man, where would all of us be without Black Sabbath and Ozzy? Seriously, even if you're not into metal, like, I mean, if Black Sabbath came out now, no one would expect they wouldn't call them metal. They would call them stoner rock. You know, they wouldn't even be metal. But like what they did to music, not just heavy metal and hard rock and everything, what they did to music is we won't see something like that ever again. You know, Guns N' Roses still has tinges of Black Sabbath, you know, that hard rock, that heavy, that down-tuned guitar, all happened because of Black Sabbath. So, and Black Sabbath and Ozzy were doing stuff that was uncharted. By the time Guns N' Roses came around, all they were doing is basically taking everything that happened before them, you know, the little bit of the punk, a little bit of the rock, taking Aerosmith and kind of like pushing the edges of it. Whereas Black Sabbath was doing something no one had fucking done. Zero. Nobody.
Totally. That you know what, dude? That's such an awesome point because I think about the lyrics of like Iron Man, dude. It's about a time paradox and a time loop, and like how crazily creative it was, and it's like Crazy Train, like everything that they did. Yeah, dude. That now I feel like that was a stupid question. Like,
no, it's not. It's not a stupid question because it's you. I guess you just really think about it, and like before Black Sabbath, there wasn't Black Sabbath. There was a time like when we used to tour with Lemmy, and Lemmy's like, I'm old enough to remember when there wasn't rock and roll. And we're like, what? And he's like, yeah, try to remember a time. He goes, try to picture that there was no Elvis, Chuck Berry, Little Richard. That didn't exist. He like, I grew up at a time where it was like the, old, just like old music. It was like Lawrence Welk and, shit like that. He's like, I remember a time. It wasn't until he was a teenager before rock and roll came around. So I think of that in the regards of like Black Sabbath or some of the things. Like, what a cool fucking time to have grown up and like I was there before rock and roll had birthed itself. What?
Yeah, dude.
Speaking of a cool time, and I feel like I know your answer now after what you said, but we'll see. Or maybe this actually happened. Who would you rather be chokeslammed by, The Undertaker or The Big Show?
Undertaker. Just because that's my guy. Even though Big Show is my guy, like literally Undertaker, just because I mean he's all time my favorite wrestler.
I feel like The Big Show
close.
I was hoping you were going to say The Big Show has already chokeslammed you. Like, I've already what that would be like.
No, dude, I was afraid. Like even Triple H throwing us around the ring a little bit. I'm like, nah, I don't know. I'm good. I'm fit. I'm strong, dude. But nah,
He'd probably pick you up. You're a big guy. Pick you up and tombstone you like nothing.
Yeah,
nothing.
I mean, those dudes are so incredibly strong and know how to do stuff. You know, they're trained to like know how to do that. But at the same time, like Triple H is like, man, I could do it. We could get someone to come out and do it. He goes, obviously, liability. What if I drop you? Like, dude, he's like, there's all this shit. So we'll do basic shit. But he goes, you have to like understand that like we're trained. This is like what we know how to keep you safe. But at the same time, you also have to know how to let us do stuff. And there's certain movements that you have to do so that when we're doing it, we're working together.
Like you didn't tuck your neck for the tombstone, so you broke your neck. You're like, I didn't know I was supposed to tuck my neck. Yeah.
Tuck your neck, or there's a certain part you got to hold down. Like hold down, like I got you, or just relax in this part, or hey, grab this part. Like that's an art form, you know. So as much as we did some very basic stuff, but like he said, he's like, dude, I can't. I'll kill you. He said.
Like a clothesline, even a clothesline by itself, like you fall wrong, that's gotta hurt.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, a guy on my football team in high school gave this dude a pile driver, and everyone thought it was funny. And then like he like severely hurt his neck, missed the game. It was bad. So let me ask you this, Joe: what would you rather smash on stage, a Fender or a Gibson?
I honestly don't give a shit because, but I if I was a guitar player, I don't know. I love Fenders, but Gibsons are just like the shit. So I would probably smash the Fender because I think the Fender would be easier to smash because they're just the way they're built. Like some of those Gibsons are built like a freaking locomotive. So if I'm going to smash a guitar, I want to make sure I can smash it. Not just like you've seen dudes try to smash their guitar before and they're like, and nothing happens. You're like, well, that was anticlimactic. But I probably
saw once where a dude tried to smash a guitar and it did not smash. And I was like, oh my God, you went from being so cool to being not cool at all.
Right. I would probably try to smash a Fender though.
What
Okay.
So we haven't talked about football at all, but who would you rather be tackled by? Aaron Donald, JJ Watt. And I almost threw Matt Reed in this because he said he could tackle, but I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't think you could match up to those guys.
Ooh, dude, neither of them would feel good. JJ Watt or Aaron Donald. And Aaron's bigger, but JJ is faster.
Yeah.
Taller.
Well, like you're not getting away.
Create a lot more.
He doesn't matter. Like he's gonna get you.
I think I'd take Aaron. I even know he'd probably pancake me, and both of them are going to feel uncomfortable. But I think I would feel less hurt by Aaron.
Aaron seems like maybe a nicer dude. Like JJ seems like when he's in the mode, like he's gonna just kill you. Whereas Aaron might be like, "Oh, this guy, I'm gonna ease up on him."
And JJ is fast, so like the amount of velocity he's got when he's hitting you, alone would feel like a truck is hitting you. Like you're gonna feel like a wall hits you with Aaron, but like,
I can't imagine.
Well, that's the right answer, actually, because outside of your studio right now, we have Aaron Donald. He's going to come in and blast me.
It would be awesome. My daughter would think she'd get a kick out of it. She's out there playing Fortnite. She'd be like, what's he doing? And all of a sudden, she'd be like, Dad.
Yeah, he's going to come through that wall of records right there.
Like the Kool-Aid man.
You just got knocked up. You just got knocked the fuck out.
Dude, so Joe, this has been awesome. And we're going to sign off now, but we want to tell people, Joe is the man. Find him on TikTok, YouTube, Spotify. You can find us on PPS, the Gram, YouTube as well. Wherever there's speakers, wherever there's things, rock the fuck on. Just Joe, leave it to him, babe.
I'm there.
Awesome, man.
Thank you, guys, man. Thank you so much, man. Thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you.
Dude. Thank you, bro.
Yeah.